morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great morning so far, or afternoon if you're joining us from afar. But we are going to go ahead and get started here with some content. So I am just going to do a brief introduction of things, give you a lay of the land as far as the platform goes, and then we will get into content. Perfect. So first off, just wanted to say hello. I'm Annie Johansson. I am on the field marketing team at Fivetran. Like I said, I'm just going to go through a few quick things, and then we'll get to the good stuff. So welcome to the Modern Data Stack Showcase with Indicative and Snowflake. We are so thankful to have them both as sponsors for today's event and are excited to learn more about their products. So a few quick things. If you'd like to interact with us throughout the event, you have a few ways to do so. You can either submit any questions, or I see some of you are already commenting in the chat. That's great. We will have a few minutes at the end of each session for you to ask any questions live to the speakers. And then we'll also have a time at the end of all of our sessions where you can join a sponsor breakout room and talk to the sponsors and the speakers directly. So please feel free to interact at any time. We're excited to have you all. So just a quick agenda. You will see some more information from Fivetran. So we'll dive into the product a little bit more there. We'll then pass it over to the Indicative team, and then we'll round things out with Snowflake. And like I mentioned, we will have Q&A at the end in those breakout rooms, but we'll also have that at the end of each session as well. So we are going to go ahead and get into things. So I am going to invite Mr. Cade Winter on stage to tell you a little bit more about Fivetran.
Awesome. Thanks, Annie. Hi, everyone. I'm Cade. I'm a sales engineering manager here with Fivetran. I sit in our Denver office, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of what Fivetran is, and then hop into our UI and give you a really quick demo. So if you have any questions, like Annie was saying, there should be time afterwards. Catch up with you during the Q&A, or just post them in the chat, and I'll get back to you there. So I will get going here. All right. So again, thanks for joining the Modern Data Stack Showcase. What is Fivetran? So Fivetran's automated data integration dynamically adapts to schema and API changes, ensuring reliable data access, and accelerates analytics with ready-to-query schemas and managed in-house transformation, in-warehouse transformation. So what exactly does all of that mean? How does Fivetran do that? So we do that with a couple key tenets here. Starting with automated, Fivetran has over 150 native connectors that we've built and maintain. And these connectors are easy to set up and configure, and simply get data starting to flow to your destination. Our platform is also resilient. We've built into our core architecture the ability to automatically recover from a point of failure anywhere in the pipeline without any intervention from the user. Fivetran handles all of that for you. And finally, we're cloud native. Our engineers not only write and maintain our connectors, so when APIs change, whether it was an expected change or from a deprecation schedule or something unexpected, that's on us to maintain and keep the lights on for those connectors and keep that data flowing. And we can roll out those changes automatically. Being cloud native, there's nothing to download, update, install. Fivetran can push those changes to you. So be very quick if something goes down, source API changes, anything like that. Fivetran's got your back there. So what makes Fivetran different in doing all these things? First is automatic data updates. So we keep your destination in lockstep with your source as far as changing relevant rows and capturing those changes. So we do an initial historical sync of your data source, and then we're capturing just the delta, anything that's new or updated since the last time that we successfully synced. Automatic schema migrations. Anytime a new field or table is added to your source system, Fivetran is going to detect that and pick it up automatically and create that in your destination for you. So no more broken pipelines anytime you maybe change a type on a column or add a new table. Fivetran is going to handle that for you all under the hood. Automated, geez, I can't speak today, automated recovery from failure. So we deploy an idempotent architecture where if a sync fails anywhere in the process, we can automatically recover from that point in time using using a stateful process. So we save that state anytime we successfully sync, and we can go back and retry that sync from that same save state over and over again until it's successful. So this allows us to be airtight when it comes to data integrity and data quality. Micro-batched architecture. Whether it's calling APIs or querying source databases, we want to be a good steward to your systems. And we take a very efficient and resource conscious approach to calling those systems and querying the data from them. So we don't want to gobble up all of your API calls or have a negative impact on your databases. So we'll use micro queries and micro batches when loading that data to your destination. And that also leads to a very efficient writing process. So we're very resource conscious on the destination side. And finally, extensible cloud functions. So as I mentioned, we have over 150 native connectors, and that list is growing every single day. But there might be sources that we don't have a native connector to. You can extend Fivetran's platform out to support those sources with things like AWS Lambda, Google Cloud Function, or Azure Functions, where basically you're writing a call out to whatever that non-native source is, and then passing Fivetran back a payload that we catch, process, and load through our normal pipelines. Cool. All right. So with that, I'm going to hop over here into the dashboard and give you a quick demo of Fivetran. So when you first sign up for your Fivetran account, you'll want to select your destination. We have everything from cloud data warehouses in here to classic row stores, and just went ahead and clicked on Snowflake here. And here on the setup screen, you'll see the setup guide over on the right. This will be the same for any destination that you have or any source system that you're setting up. We'll walk you through step by step anything that's required to get this destination or source integrated with Fivetran. Also with Snowflake, it's worth mentioning that you can use Snowflake Partner Connect to actually spin up a Fivetran account and automatically link your Snowflake to Fivetran. So you don't have to even go through this setup process here. But walking through the steps over here on the setup instructions, you'll input your host to your Snowflake instance, port, create a user for Fivetran. This user will need create permissions on schema and tables, because Fivetran is going to create all of that and all of those objects in the destination for you. You don't have to do anything other than create as a user and make sure that we have access and that user has the appropriate level of permissions. She'll point us at a database. Select an auth method, either password or key pair. I have password selected here, so I'll have my user password. And finally, an optional role. So this role can be defined if you don't have a default role that you want to use for this user. As far as what Fivetran is going to be using when interacting with Snowflake, you can specify what role you want to use there. Next, selecting a connection method, either directly or via private link. It's a feature that we're working on right now. And data processing locations. So US, EU, Australia, UK, Canada, and Singapore are locations of our servers globally. And then finally, a time zone. So this will just be the set time zone for your account. Once I have all this configured and set up, I do save and test and connect my Fivetran account to Snowflake. So once that goes through, you'll see here a nice green icon telling me that I'm connected to Snowflake. I can always come back in here. I can test my connection or edit my connection details if I ever need to update or change anything. So let's hop over and set up a source. So I'm going to go over to the Connectors tab. And here we have quite a few just demo sources that are already set up, and I want to set up something new. So I'll click on Add Connector in the top right. And we have different categories here of sources grouped together. So you have databases, marketing analytics, sales analytics, all by use case. We also have some of our top sources here filtered by how common they are. But I can search for a source. And now I'm going to do Salesforce and select our sandbox. So once I have that selected, I'll be taken to the setup screen. Again, just like with setting up Snowflake, you'll see the setup form over here on the right telling you anything that might be necessary to set up on the source side to get connected to Fivetran. Then I will give this a destination schema. Like I mentioned, Fivetran is going to create the schema and tables for you in Snowflake. So this needs to be something unique that won't conflict with something that's already existing in your destination. So once I have that ready to go, I'll just click Authorize. There we go. And I'm already signed into my Snowflake or my Salesforce account. I've done this a time or two before. So if I wasn't, all that would have done is take me over to Salesforce and ask me to log in and authenticate. And it's going to use my user license to create this connection. So once I have the authentication successful there, I'll click Save and Test and finalize the connection. And right now, what this is doing is connecting Fivetran to Salesforce and determining what all objects that my user license has access to, and basically building out a schema for those different tables and columns and objects within your Salesforce account. So let this go through. All right, green check mark, we're good to go. Now I'll just click View Connector. It's going to actually take me into the connector configuration screen. So connector's already set up. I'm ready to go here, but maybe I want to review my schema and see everything that I have access to sync and pick and choose what tables and objects I actually want to bring over. So as I pull up my schema here, just thinking about it. It's mad at me for skipping a step. I'm going to review the schema here. Oh, doesn't want to let me. All right, fair enough. So in lieu of checking out this schema, I'll go to the setup form here and show you some of the configurations that you have. So, demoing live software. So under the setup, I have a sync frequency. This is just how often you want Fivetran to check for new or changed data. This takes effect after the initial historical sync. You can select and deselect as many tables as columns and columns within those tables that you want to move over to Snowflake. And you can always add in more. So maybe if you just want to start with a handful of tables, maybe something that's really important to your use case, or you just want to see how this data flows over, you can start with that and select more as you go. But during the historical sync, we're going to pull over all of that data, and then we'll set those incremental cursors that I've mentioned previously. That just tells us where we left off from reading. So with something like API connector or Salesforce, we'll use a system mod stamp or last modified date to tell us when the last time we successfully extracted data from that source was. Now, with other sources like databases, we use log-based replication so that once we do the initial historical sync, we don't have to go back to the table level to look for changes. We can just look at the logs, which is extremely efficient, and both from a time perspective, being able to capture those changes quickly, and also from a resource perspective, we don't have to go look at the table level. We understand that a lot of databases that we're going to be syncing are production systems, and you don't want to put load on those. So Fivetran does that in, again, the most efficient way possible without impacting your source systems. So once those historical syncs are done, I would just select the sync frequency here. Again, go down to every 5 minutes, up to 24 hours, up to you. A few other options here. You can set delayed notifications if something gets backed up, or resync all historical data, and finally delete the connection. A few other features here. Logs. We have under the hood look of what's going on with your connectors. So you can see user actions within these logs. You can see here if I edited the connector, the update period, or the sync frequency. You can also see the major events that happen within a sync. So making API calls or batching out, writing that data to Snowflake. This is all, any sensitive information is all obfuscated or redacted. We don't expose any of that here in the logs. So it's actually a really helpful feature here just to get a quick look at what's going on under the hood with Fivetran. And then finally, the status page. You can see a history of your syncs and a breakdown of all those different actions that Fivetran's doing, from extracting, processing, and loading that data into your destination at the hour, day, or week level. Right. Let's see if the schema, let me refresh and see if it ever came back for me. There we go. We use this Salesforce Sandbox instance for a lot of demos, all our account executives and whatnot. So I wouldn't be surprised if we ran into a little bit of an API hiccup there with our Sandbox account. But finally, we have our Schema tab. As I mentioned, you can select and deselect tables and see what all you actually have access to sync. So I can go in here, deselect tables. I can even open up a table and, as I mentioned, select and deselect columns. So if you have anything like PII, you can deselect a column for that reason, and Fivetran won't bring that data over. Or if it's just not important to your analytics use case, you can choose to remove that data from the sync operation. Also, if you have PII, but you still do want to bring that data over, you have the option over here to hash those columns. So what Fivetran will do is apply a SHA-256 hashing algorithm to that value, and we use a consistent salt across your Fivetran account. So if you're hashing value from Salesforce and another value from your production database, those would be similar values in Snowflake, and you'd still be able to join and run analytics on those values, but you wouldn't see the raw underlying value of what that row is in the destination, or what that column is in the destination. So really helpful feature there for anything security intensive. Cool. So once I've selected everything I want to sync, I would just save those changes, and then I would start the process of syncing data. Cool. So there we have it. That's a high-level overview of the Fivetran platform, getting set up and integrated with Snowflake, and then setting up a source in Salesforce. Hopefully that was helpful. And I'll go ahead and stop presenting and turn it back over to you, Annie.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Cade. I personally love to see demos of like that and all the new things that we have coming up every day. But we did get a question.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any way to request new connectors to be something native from Fivetran instead of creating our own Lambdas?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our support portal, we have a feature request page, and that's actually how we help build out our roadmap, is understanding what our prospects and customers are looking to use. So please, Lucas, any requests that you may have for sources, definitely let us know. You can reach out and put you in contact with someone in sales, or get you over to our feature request portal.
Wonderful.
Yeah, no problem.
Are there any other questions for Cade at the moment before we pass it off? Give people another 30 seconds to chime in. All right. Well, Cade will be available at the end of sessions in the Fivetran breakout room. So if you do come up with any questions for him, he will be available there. Thanks so much, Cade.
You bet. Thanks, everyone.
All right, we are going to go to our next block here and learn from the indicative team.
Hi there.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Doing well, doing
Hello.
well. Awesome. I will let you both take it from here.
All right. Let me share my screen. I think this is correct. Great. Perfect. So, hey everyone, my name is Esmeralda Martinez. I'm the Director of Customer Engagement here at Indicative, and I'm joined by Ansley Miller, Sales Engineer on my team, who will be walking you through the demo of Indicative after I walk through a few short slides. So to kick it off, Indicative is product analytics for your data warehouse. So what does that mean? So Indicative is a product analytics platform specifically designed for non-technical business users like product and growth marketing teams. And we allow them to build complex analysis to build better products and drive conversion, engagement, retention, and ultimately drive revenue. So we all know it's important for product and marketing people to really understand their customers so that they can make the best strategic decisions using data. And Indicative puts that analysis capabilities to do that in their hands. So business users have historically been dependent on data engineers and analysts for insights, which leads to slow response times for analysis requests and a backlog of requests for those data teams, and reduces the ability for the data teams to focus on advanced analysis like machine learning. Indicative solves this pain point because it was designed with the business user in mind. Therefore, the UI is easy to use, as you'll see when Ansley walks you through the demo. And it doesn't require any coding or SQL to actually do the analysis. Since Indicative doesn't rely on SQL, it is capable of analysis that wouldn't be feasible with something like SQL, as you'll see from our multipath funnel analysis. Also, only Indicative connects directly to your single source of truth in your data warehouse and is able to combine multiple sources to provide you with a holistic view of the customer. So, for example, Bento Box and Haven Life are two of our customers, and they both use Indicative to join together data across various data sets, whether that's web and mobile or front-end and back-end data, to really understand how customers are interacting with the business across all of those touch points. Many of our customers, for example, integrate email, push notification, web, mobile, app, as well as call center data, all around, again, really understanding what is that customer journey and how can we improve that customer journey. With Prezi and LiveUp, before Indicative, they were running into the issue of business teams depending on data analysts for their analysis needs, who were limited by the capabilities of SQL. So understanding that customer journey was extremely cumbersome using SQL. With Indicative, they're now able to build their own analysis faster and make their own decisions without depending on the data analysts and the data teams. And go on to the next one. So Indicative offers a wide variety of integrations in terms of getting the data into the platform. And we are the only product analytics platform that can connect directly to the data warehouse. We also support the standard CDPs like Segment, mParticle, Snowplow, and have an SDK for those that don't have tracking already set up or would prefer to use our SDKs or API. So here are a few of our happy customers. If you want to learn more about how customers have used Indicative and the insights they've been able to get from it, you can go to indicative.com/case studies or just go on our website and look at our case studies. And now I will pass it over to Ansley for the demo.
All right, and I am going to share my screen if I can find that. There we go. All right, Chrome tab, and we are going to head right into the dashboard. So this is a dashboard. I'm going to slowly scroll through this as I explain what it is and what A dashboard is a good place to keep all types of visualizations together for a specific purpose. So in this case, we'll be looking at use cases around a fictitious company called Petbox and how they've released a new feature called PetCam. So we'll be digging into how PetCam is performing, if people are using PetCam, how many times they use PetCam, and also how it relates to our purchase behavior. So we'll take a look into all of those use cases. They're by no means limited to what indicative can do, but it's just meant to get the gears rolling to give you an idea of some of the things that are possible. One thing that I want to point out before we get started is dashboards are shareable. So if you wanted to schedule a report for this to go out, you can easily do this by scheduling a new report here, and we'll enable print mode. And reports can go out to anybody whether they have an indicative account or not. So people without an indicative account will receive a PDF copy of the dashboard, and people with an indicative account will also receive a live link to the dashboard where they'll be able to go in and play with the data. So I'm going to put this back into screen view because that's the way that I prefer to look at it. And we'll go ahead and start jumping into our tools. First up is our journeys analysis. And here we're going to be looking at what people do after they engage with our new feature, PetCam. So journeys is really good for answering the question, what do users do next? So in this case, we're looking at what do users do after they open PetCam. So we have about 500,000 users who opened PetCam in the last 7 days. And of those 5,000 users, the most common next action is to go ahead and open the app, followed by connecting to PetCam. So that's a pretty interesting path. But first, I want to show you some of the knobs and dials we have in order to clean up and really hone this analysis. So one of the first things we have is you have the ability to go up to 15 steps out. So currently we're looking at 5 steps, and we could go all the way out to 15 if we wanted to get really granular about what we're looking at. Another thing we can do is we can change the threshold. So you'll notice here that there's a percentage next to each of these numbers, and that's the percent of users who went to this particular event after the previous event. So currently we have our threshold set to 5. If we wanted to clean this up a little bit, we could go up to 10% and take a look at that. So let's just get a look at what this looks like. And there we go, our visualization is cleaned up a bit. Another thing we can do is we can exclude events from our visualization. So let's say that this site visit is not interesting, maybe because PetCam is only available on the mobile app. So maybe we want to exclude site visits from this analysis. So it's very easy to go ahead and exclude that, and no longer will that event show up anywhere in our visualization. Another thing that we can do is we can expand events. So expand events is similar to grouping the event by a property. So let's say we're interested in this open app from the marketing source. So we can expand this event by the marketing source. And what that is going to do is it's going to group this open app into the different subcategories. So we'll see open app from direct traffic, from email, and from organic. So we can see those nicely split out. The final thing I want to show you is the ability to seamlessly move between journeys and funnel analysis. So what we can do is we can come and identify an interesting path. So maybe open PetCam, direct traffic to our app, and then connecting to the PetCam is interesting to us. So we can analyze this as a funnel. Click backwards through the path that we're interested in analyzing. I'm going to discard the changes that we made real quick. And just like that, we are here at a funnel and we're ready to build. So that is kind of journeys in a nutshell. We are going to move on to funnels now, and I'm going to head back to our PetCam launch dashboard. So Now we're going to talk about funnels, and funnels are really good for understanding things like A/B testing and path analysis. This is really the bread and butter of indicative. Nobody else lets you have what's called these multi-path funnels that are really good for analyzing path analysis. So I'm going to go ahead and click into this, and we'll take a look and we'll build out this in just a second together. But first I want to take a look at what we're seeing. So here you have a funnel, and we have this optional step. So how we read this is users who site visit, do not connect to the pet cam, add to cart, and then purchase a product. And then we also have a path where people do connect to pet cam, add to cart, and then purchase product. We have the total conversion rate for each of those paths, as well as the average conversion time. And then you'll notice that this funnel is also grouped by the device type. So we can click on one of these groups, let's say iPhone, and we can easily see what the conversion rate for that group is compared to our total conversion rate. Now, if you don't like looking at it like this, we also have all of this information laid out in a table below. To take action on this data is very easy. So what we can do is we can come in here and we can do what's called creating a user segment. So let's say we're interested in users who get to add to cart but do not purchase. And we want to export this user segment to send a message to them, say, hey, maybe you want to check out your cart again. It's very easy to create a user segment from the dropped off users. We can give them a name like users who add to cart but don't purchase. And then we can give them a category like target groups and set them to either static or dynamic. So static is going to never update. It's always going to use the same data that we're looking at today. And dynamic updates the user segment daily. So we'll see that as well. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then I'm going to scroll up a bit to what's called our data dictionary. And our data dictionary allows us to view all of our user segments that we've created along with our events and properties. So if I scroll down, I imagine we will find that user segment that I just created. Oh, I can't find it, but I promise you it's there. And what we'll also be able to do is use those user segments as filters in our analysis. So here they are, all of our user segments that we can use to filter. Great. Now I want to build this out together. So what we're going to do is we're just going to clear this and we're going to start from scratch. So with every query builder and indicative, the process is almost identical. So we start by defining the event that we want to look at. So in this case, it's going to be a site visit. Next, we're going to connect to the pet cam. We are going to add to cart, and then finally purchase product. And you'll notice as I type these in, you have this drop down. All of these events are populated directly from your data warehouse or CDP or our SDK, depending on how you integrate. But this is where all your events will show up so that you can easily access those. I'm going to go ahead and run this really quickly, and you'll notice that we have something a little bit different than what we were looking at before. It is not an optional, it does not have an optional step. So what we can do to add that optional step in is simply click this pin button right here. And there we go. Now we're looking at our multi-path funnel again. One last thing I want to show you is the ability to look at different bar chart types. So if you're interested in seeing the visualization this way, it's really good for grouping. So if I scroll up to our query builder and I add a group by device type, this stacked bar chart is really good for looking at groups of users as well as the drop-off compared to the multi-path donut, which is really good for seeing those proportions of our group laid out. Awesome, so that is it for funnels. The next thing that we want to take a look at is going to be our segmentation tool. So I'm going to head back to our dashboard again, PetCam launch. and scroll down to our segmentation section. Now, segmentation is really good at slicing and dicing users. So what we can do is answer questions like, what % of PetCam opens come from paid marketing? So I'm actually going to pop this one open for you guys. And what we'll see is we have a query row for open PetCam and a query row for open PetCam filtered where the marketing channel is equal to paid. Now, I'm going to get rid of this query row here, and I'm going to build this calculation out for us. It's as simple as coming to the calculation button here on the right-hand side, clicking calculate, and we will say paid opens as a percentage of all PetCam opens, calculate and run. And just like that, we're able to build out metrics that don't necessarily come with our data, but can be easily calculated with a for-function calculator. So just like that, we're able to tell that about 15% of all of our traffic is coming from paid marketing. The last tool that I want to show you guys today is Cohort Analysis. And Cohort is really good for understanding repeat and first-time behaviors. So in this case, we're looking at when do PetCam users make a purchase. So I'm going to start this one from scratch. So again, we'll come up to Analyze and Cohort Analysis. And we'll start by defining our cohort, or what event includes users in our cohort. So that's going to be a PetCam launch, or connect to PetCam, pardon me. And then we want to look at a target behavior, which is going to be a purchase product. I'm going to go ahead and run this quickly, and we'll take a look at what this looks like. So how do you read this? Well, over the last 30 days, there were 228,000 users who connected to PetCam. Of those 228,000 users, 37% returned the same day to make a purchase. Another 3.7% return the following day, and so on and so forth. So you start to get an idea about the cyclic relationship between Connect PetCam and Open product or Purchase product. We can also do something like a revenue stream and look at how revenue works as well. We can also group this by the day, week, or month, or hour of the Connect PetCam, as well as breaking out by our properties. So I'll go ahead and break out by device type again. And there we go. We're able to see our cohort broken out by that device type. Awesome. So heading back to the dashboard, I just want to review quickly what we all went over today. So PetCam launch. With journeys, we took a look at what our users were doing after they used our new feature. With funnels, we identified our best path to conversion. With segmentation, we sliced and diced our users and found what % was coming from paid marketing. And with cohort analysis, we looked at when do PetCam users make a purchase and looked at repeat behaviors. So I do want to jump back over. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then share a different tab. I have one last slide for you, and then I will hand it back over. So these are the key takeaways from today's presentation. The first thing is you're going to know your customer like never before. With the ability to use things like journeys and multi-path funnels and segmentation, you can really get a clear idea of who your users are and what they're doing. The second key takeaway is it's simple to use and there's no SQL or coding. It's really designed to be very easy for the non-technical user to do ad hoc analysis and get the answers that they're looking for. The final takeaway is that only Indicative connects directly to your data warehouse, whether that's Snowflake or Google or AWS. We can connect to any of your data warehouse sources and get your data streaming in near real time. I think we have one last slide, so we're going to open it up for Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for that. I think that was a perfect combination of information and demo, so I appreciate your time on that. We did have a question come in. What is the main difference between indicative and growing IO?
Yeah, I can take that. So it looks like growing IO mainly supports like SDK and API integrations, whereas we're, again, the only product analytics platform to connect directly to the data in a data warehouse and the single source of preserving that single source of truth. Also, Growing.io is, in addition to an analytics platform, also a CDP and a marketing automation platform, whereas we focus on building the best possible analytics platform, and we don't also have a CDP and marketing automation features.
Wonderful, thank you. Any last questions? All right, I think we are good. We will wait for the sponsor rooms a little bit later. So thank you both so much for your time on that.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.
All right, we will move to our next block. And we are going to hear from Snowflake.
Thanks, Annie.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, let me share my screen. Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the event today. So my name is Stefan Cosme, and I'm a sales engineering manager at Snowflake. Today, we'll be discussing the Snowflake Data Cloud and the data challenges faced by companies on a nearly daily basis. So what we found is that companies are falling short, of realizing the potential of data because of the proliferation of data silos. With the rise of the application cloud, Salesforce and Workday, and infrastructure clouds, such as AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, the amount of data we have to drive our businesses has exploded. But that data is now spread across different silos and environments. These silos aren't just within an organization's four walls. It includes incorporating third-party data, something 87% of decision makers want to do more of, which is what you're seeing on the screen here. Silos between suppliers, or even how you get data to customers. Additionally, silos continue to get added. Mergers and acquisitions are on the rise, introducing new silo complexity to bring data and different clouds together. All these silos are expensive and time-consuming to extract value from, and governance and collaboration are nearly impossible across multiple technologies and clouds. You can eliminate all of these silos with the Snowflake Data Cloud. The Data Cloud is one global unified system connecting companies and data providers to the most relevant data for their businesses. Wherever data or users live, Snowflake delivers a single and seamless experience across multiple public clouds, eliminating all previous silos. Every Snowflake customer has access to the Data Cloud simply by using Snowflake's platform. The Data Cloud enables three key things: access, governance, and action. Access means that organizations can discover and share data without physically moving it within their own organization ecosystem, as well as with third parties. Governance means knowing and protecting your data in a way that can unlock new value and collaboration while maintaining highest levels of security and compliance. And action means that you can empower every part of your business with data to build better products, make faster decisions, create new revenue streams, and realize the value of your greatest untapped asset, data. Snowflake can be used for a wide range of workloads, including data engineering to build simple, reliable data pipelines in the language of your choice, as a data lake with the access, performance, and security that you require, for data warehousing with unlimited performance and concurrency, to streamline data science and to simplify data model preparation using the framework of your choice, for building data-intensive applications that require an analytics workhorse at their core, and streamline data sharing to collaborate on live data across data consumers and providers. Snowflake's platform is a unified architecture that allows you to integrate data from a wide range of data sources of any type: structured, semi-structured, and unstructured, and use it to power use cases across data engineering, data lakes, data science, data warehousing, data applications, and data sharing. It's made up of three unique layers that deliver on those critical requirements: the Elastic Performance Engine, Intelligent Infrastructure, and the Cross-Cloud Snow Grid. Let's look at each of these in a little bit more detail. The Elastic Performance Engine gives you speed. This is one single engine that can support every workload. No need to bring in multiple different engines for processing data versus analyzing it and then trying to stitch them together. With Snowflake, you get blazing performance for large, complex pipelines, feature engineering, interactive applications, analytic dashboards, and much more. This engine is built for speed. You get leading performance and concurrency out of the box without ever needing to worry about resource contention or tuning. Elastically scale instantly to support any number of users, jobs, or data. And multi-cluster resource isolation means reliable performance every time. And finally, it's designed for everyone, whether your team is comfortable with SQL or if they prefer working with Java. They can take advantage of the performance engine. They can even use their favorite external tools directly against it to take advantage of the scale and performance with native push-down integrations. Snowflake's platform is designed with intelligent infrastructure to ensure everything just works. Snowflake is fully managed with automations that let your teams focus on what actually matters to the business. These automations support your team throughout the platform. For example, encrypting data by default, eliminating maintenance and upgrades, intelligently partitioning data and scaling those resources, and more, reducing risk and improving operational efficiency. The platform is also designed to stay up and running no matter what happens. It is always on availability and automates complex replication of data and soon users, roles, policies, and more, whether it's cross regions or even cross clouds, so you can recover quickly with minimal data loss and disruption. Not only does all of this translate to running efficiently and reliably, but it also ensures costs are optimized. Snowflake's usage-based pricing model means you only pay for what you use. Built-in storage compression lets you store all of your data for cheaper, just by bringing it into Snowflake. And we are constantly innovating to improve performance, deliver new optimizations, and further enhance efficiencies, which all get transparently delivered to you with no action required. There are multiple ways to share data and collaborate in the data cloud. You can tap into Snowflake Data Marketplace to discover third-party data or data services from leading data providers, or you can market and deliver your own data products to the data cloud. Secure data sharing also allows you to share across your ecosystem, whether that is with other Snowflake accounts via a direct share or with companies that are not yet on Snowflake via what we call reader accounts. Additionally, using a data exchange, you can administer group sharing and data discovery across all of your business units. So what we see here is that when leading companies take advantage, complete advantage of their data, they can drive significant impact to how they operate and compete in the market. First, when you're able to get your arms around all of your data, it's far easier to make better, quicker business decisions. Centralizing data into a single platform reduces the number of hops, so to speak, that data needs to take before it becomes actionable. By reducing or altogether eliminating the wait time for data, we get all users all the data they need when they need it. As a result, they can more readily spot new business opportunities and make course corrections before issues even arise. Second, the ease of use and flexibility that comes with working with data in a new way allows us to reduce the overall cost of how we scale data management and analytics. By creating a single place for all types of data, we are able to deliver performance while planning for scale, without adding excessive costs inherent to traditional architectures that require a lot of overhead to build and maintain. Third, when we're able to better get our arms around data, eliminate excessive costs, we can focus on delivering a great customer experience through data. Whether it's improving how we interact with customers, building better quality products, or making data accessible to both internal and external customers that need it. By leveraging data to better understand how they intersect with your business, we can dramatically improve the overall customer experience. As you can see from this recent customer survey, the benefits of Snowflake can be realized in many areas. So with that, I think it's prudent to jump in and do a brief demonstration of the Snowflake platform. And so here I'm jumping over to my demo account. This is the Snowflake UI. Now, in Snowflake, as I mentioned earlier, you can use us for a lot of different workloads and utilities. So this UI that I'm logging into is part of our automated service, but it is not the only way that you can access Snowflake. We have ODBC, JDBC, .NET, Node.js, Scala, Spark, R, Python, Go, whatever language, whatever tool you and your team are trying to use to derive insights and value from your data can be used with that data living in Snowflake. So here I'm going to log in as a fictional user whose name is Peter. Peter here is a DBA for this company. So on the top right of the screen, we'll see Peter's username, and underneath his name, we'll see DBA, the role that he has in Snowflake. Now, Snowflake, like most other data systems on the market, uses role-based access control for your data security and governance. Unlike most other systems on the market, and tying back a little bit to what I showed you in the presentation, we do all of the compression and encryption for you. So all of your data in flight and at rest encrypted by default with PCI, HIPAA, and FedRAMP compliance out of the box. On the top left of the screen, we'll see the 6 main context windows of the Snowflake solution. Starting on the left, we have databases, shares, data marketplace, warehouses, worksheets, and history. Now I'm going to go through most of these today. So starting on the right, we have history. History is what it sounds like. It's just the history of the commands that I've run as this Peter user. My worksheet is my in-browser SQL editor. Now, you don't have to use our editor. Like I mentioned, you can use any of the connectors to connect your favorite tooling to Snowflake, whether it's Fivetran or Indicative, or if you'd like, DataGrip or dbeaver, any of those types of SQL IDEs. But you can continue to write SQL in our native UI if you so choose, which many of our customers do. The next one here is warehouses. Now, I personally think warehouses is a little bit of a misnomer. Warehouse usually indicates some kind of data, right? You think of a warehouse as maybe a different silo in your environment. Well, warehouses in Snowflake are virtual warehouses, and what they are effectively is just compute engines. And so if you think back to the previous slide where we had that separation of compute from storage, this is where the compute layer lives in Snowflake. On the screen in front of you, you'll see that it's blank. It's because I don't currently have any compute on or active in this account. However, just because I don't have the compute on does not mean that I don't have data sitting in my Snowflake account. And so here, if I go into the Snowflake sample data set as an example and sort it by size, you'll see that I have about 30 odd terabytes of compressed data sitting in my Snowflake environment without the need for compute to be on. So in this way, you can think of Snowflake as a usable data lake. You can store as much data as you want in our platform and only pay for the access when you actually need to use it. And so in this case, this 30 terabytes compressed usually is about 3 to 5x compression, somewhere in the order of 100 terabytes when expanded in Snowflake. Now I can go from 100 terabytes to a petabyte without ever having to make a single change to my storage layer. Snowflake will simply handle the extra volume of data. Now for the purposes of this demonstration, there are a few databases here. The sales database, which is basically empty, stands for the line item table, which has a few thousand rows, and this app log database, which has no data in it at all. And so Peter's job today is to load data for his analysts to be able to consume. And so here we're going to go to the warehouses tab, the compute clusters tab, and I'm going to create a compute cluster for Peter to use to load data into Snowflake. And so here we're going to hit the create button. And what you'll see on the screen is all of the configuration options that you need at a minimum. There are other things that you can do here in code, which I'll show you in a second. But at a default, these are the things that are required. So we'll give this compute cluster a name. Now, the reason we give this compute cluster a name is because I can have any number of these compute clusters on and active in my account at the same time doing different work. So as an example, this one is going to be my load warehouse. It's going to load data into Snowflake, but I can have another compute cluster for data science, one for my marketing team, one for my product analytics team. And each of those compute clusters can read or write to the same set of data with no limitation on resource contention. So each of these will be completely isolated from one another, though it's one central version of the data that they're accessing in the middle. The next consideration is how large of a compute cluster do I actually need for the work that I'm going to be doing? Well, in Snowflake, we've named these in t-shirt sizes. So 1 server is an extra small, 2 servers is a small, 4 servers is a medium, so on and so forth by factors of 2 until we get to what we call a 4XL, which is 128 servers. We can actually go substantially higher than this, but by default in the UI, we only show up to 128. For most customers, they play somewhere between a small and an extra large. And then for particularly large sets of data or incredibly complex data analytics, we go into those 2, 3, 4 Excel workloads. The value here is that because these warehouses, these compute clusters live separate from your data, we get some interesting scalability options. And so as an example here, if I run a query on a 1 server system, and let's imagine it takes 60 seconds, on a 2 server system, that same query should finish in 30 seconds. And on a 4 server system, that same query should finish in 15 seconds. Now, the value to you as a business is, one, you can instantly scale between those sizes. So if your workload is taking a little bit too long, you can click one button and go to 4, 8 times more compute horsepower. Or in this case, you can have, because we charge per second, your query run 4 times more efficiently, but pay no more than you would have to run it at 60 seconds. Because 60 seconds on 1 server costs the same as 15 seconds on 4 servers. So incredible flexibility, both in terms of cost and performance. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to choose a large 8-node cluster, which is kind of middle of the road. Now, the next feature here is what we call maximum and minimum clusters. Now, a maximum cluster in Snowflake is telling us that we are worried about concurrency. So as an example, if you have a large company where with very spiky workloads, internally, if you had some analytics tool that you were exposing to your users, what you'd have to do is prepare in case all of your users decided to access at once, or be okay with the fact that some users' queries were going to queue while others were completing. As an example, if you were a product company, right, if you were building a product that you were exposing to customers based on analytics, this would be a bit of a problem. You need to control the customer experience. And on traditional technology, you'd have to over-provision your environment to ensure that your customers never hit any roadblocks. Now, what that does is, one, it's costly in terms of just extra spend, but two, it also puts an onus on your data team to have to identify and figure out what size that system should be. Well, in Snowflake, what we can do here is set this value greater than 1. And what that tells us is if this warehouse, this large 8-node system, is incapable of running as many queries as you're firing at Snowflake, rather than queue those queries, we will simply turn on an additional 8-node cluster in parallel and start to independently and automatically run that query on that new cluster. And if that second cluster fills up, we go out to a third, then a fourth, however far out you need us to go to ensure that your product is within SLA. So for now, I don't need to have this feature on. It is just me in the system, so I'll turn it off. The next value here is auto suspend. So in Snowflake, as I mentioned, you only pay for the compute time when it's on and you're using it. So as an example, if at 6 p.m., everyone in your company goes home for the day and nobody's running analytics until tomorrow at 7 a.m., we can have Snowflake have what's called an auto suspension period. So here, once the last query runs, we start waiting 5 minutes. Once that 5 minutes has elapsed, we will turn the compute cluster off and you're no longer paying for it. However, just because the compute cluster is off does not mean that it is unavailable. And so we're 24/7 available, though you're only paying for us if and when you actually need to use us. So as an example, if your CEO comes in the middle of the night before a board meeting and decides he or she wants to refresh a dashboard, the system will turn itself back on, process that query, and then turn itself back off once that auto suspension period has been met. So incredible flexibility in terms of your ability to access the system, but you don't have to pay for it to be on all the time. Now, this can all be done with some fairly standard SQL shown here on the screen, but for now, all I'm going to do is hit this finish button and show you that it's already done. So the value of Snowflake is we maintain and manage the infrastructure for you. So rather than wait 5, 15, 30 minutes, even up to 5, 6 hours in traditional cloud architecture to retrieve your instances for your environment, in Snowflake, we keep a hot pool of servers on all the time, and we simply allocate them to you as you need them. And that allocation only takes a few milliseconds to a few seconds, depending on how many servers you're asking for. And so instantaneous availability to as much compute as you need. So now that I have this compute cluster, I want to start running some of my jobs. And so on this worksheet screen, I'm going to choose the warehouse that I've created, that load warehouse. The reason I'm defining this compute cluster is you'll notice I have lots of different tabs up here. Each of these tabs could be submitting work to different compute clusters. So now that I've chosen that load warehouse, here what we're going to be doing on the screen is using that sales database I showed you. Here we're going to be copying data into tables from a cloud bucket, whether it's Azure, GCP, or AWS, where there's a subfolder that matches the table name. And then this is all CSV structure data. These 8 tables are about 1 billion rows that we're going to be loading together. Now, something interesting that Snowflake does, we've already touched on encryption and compression, but we actually store all of your data in tiny immutable files, and we've built version controlling into the tool for you. So again, eliminating the need for your data teams to ensure that there are backups and worrying about what happens in an outage. In Snowflake, all of your data at every single transaction is version controlled for you up to 90 days. We call that time travel. It gives you the ability to not only recover to a point in the past, but to also compare your data today versus what it looked like a week ago, 2 months ago, whatever interval up to that 90 days. And so that's what you're seeing down here on line 20, where I can say, show me the count from the line item table, but show it to me as that table existed 2 minutes ago. Here, 60 seconds times 2 for 2 minutes in the past. After that, we'll switch to the app log database. We'll copy data from a different cloud bucket, and this time it's in raw JSON format. So JSON, Avro, XML, Parquet, and ORC files are all first-class objects in Snowflake. It does not require any pre-processing to load that data into our platform and make use of it. So if you're thinking about any analytic data that you're grabbing from pixel tracking on your website, that would all come in JSON format. You'd be able to load that natively into our platform. So here what I'm going to do is select all of the jobs on this screen, open the history so we can watch them as they go, and hit run. Now, as these jobs start to complete, I can say as Peter, you know what, today's work is a little bit more intensive than yesterday's. And so what I actually want to do is increase the compute power. I want to go from that 8-node large system that I had turned on to an extra large 16-node system. And so just as fast as I've clicked that button, that change has happened. Now, every subsequent query is going to see a 16-node extra large to complete on, therefore be running on 100% increase in compute power. The value of what I just did there is that it was non-disruptive. So for any of you who are product companies or for any of you who have large internal teams, the ability to increase or change the value of how many compute clusters are in your environment without taking the system offline is immense, right? The ability to increase 100, 200, 400% increase in compute power as your needs demand it with one click of a button is something that no other technology on the market can provide to you. So immense value, incredible ROI. So I appreciate everybody's time today. That's the quick brief demo of Snowflake I wanted to showcase to you. And if there are any questions, I look forward to meeting you all in the breakout rooms.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We did have one question come in. Can we use infrastructure as code tools to manage the warehouses? Or does Snowflake provide this kind of automation as well? Oh, Stefan, did you leave me?
Apologies. Sorry about that. So you can use infrastructure as code tools. Like I said, anything that connects via ODBC, JDBC, any of those open sources of connection will be able to talk to Snowflake. So if you're using Terraform or any of those other types of products that you'd like to use and maintain your infrastructure, you can absolutely use them with Snowflake. We do have customers that are doing that. But I think this question would dictate a little bit more of a discussion, so we can talk about it in the breakout room.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We are going to move into our breakout room portion. So you'll see us in a little bit different part of the platform, but if you have any additional questions, go ahead and pop into those correlating breakout rooms to our sponsors. And if you have to drop, thank you so much for joining us today. But we hope you stick around and hang out with us for a little bit, discuss a few more things, and we will be passing along the recording after this. So we will see you in the breakout rooms.